Wow, so that wasn't even a
Yeah.
That is.
What time's it start? I guess just
I think weekend.
three slips. Bounce.
Oh, I see.
Okay, welcome. Good morning, everyone. Good morning and welcome. It is April 30th, 2024. Let the record reflect that we have 4 commissioners present today. We've got Commissioner Jordan on Zoom with
Oh,
Oh, look at how cute she is. Commissioner Kearns, Commissioner Cutie, and the birthday person. Commissioner
yes.
Markham. Happy birthday. So
39 all over again.
exactly. I love it. So with that, we'll go ahead and get started. It is, like I said, April 30th, 2024. It's our 9 o'clock board briefing meeting. And we're starting off with Doug Chase with Parks and Rec.
Good morning, Commissioner and Commissioner. To start, I'd like to introduce our new landscape architect, Julia Cole,
Everyone.
that's joined me today, and we're really excited to have her on board. She's off to a great start. I think we have 3 or 4 or more projects. She's already jumped right in on it, so. And has helped with a little flyer here today. And with that, I am scheduled to brief you on our administrative building where we're ready to award the project bid here. And so if we continue on to the next slide, please. And looks like we have an overlap. Oh, there. Okay. Fancy, I think, sorry. Okay, very good. Perfect. So again, briefing for the Parks Administrative Building Renovation Award Project number P13289C. And the request ultimately is to award the project to the responsible low bidder, Inland Northwest Builders, for the base bid only in the amount of $1,084,644. And you can see that's the base bid plus tax. Next slide, please. Just a quick recap. That is the former Conservation District building. Next slide, please. Okay. And again, these are conditions from about 2 years ago. Next slide, please. Some of the existing fencing there, that's along Havana. Next slide, please. Again, some existing conditions. We have cleaned up some of the trees since this was taken. Next slide, please. Again, fencing still standing, but many of those trees have now been cleaned up. If you've driven by the site, next slide, please. We prior to the vegetation removal, I think the site had been broken into 2 or 3 times. We've not been broken into since the vegetation has been selectively removed and cleared. So that is already being very, very helpful, and our neighbors that also keep an eye on it have been very appreciative of the initial site clearing work that's been done. Next slide, please. This is just a few photos of the again, somewhat existing conditions. This was shortly before they left. To just show what we're looking at. That's the garage area, and I think one of the rooms and the main conference room upstairs in the lower left hand corner. Next slide. So I'll just go through quickly the project highlights. We are looking to relocate the main entrance to the west side of the building, which will be more conveniently located to where the public and visitor parking is at, as opposed to the north end where there really is no public parking. We also incorporate what I call here as campus standards for the card electronic access control. That's something that we've not had, and we've designed that entrance off of the west side involves some of the, I think, more common technology here on campus that allows folks to buzz in, if you will. And we have fencing to secure county vehicle and equipment, which is great. We had, I think, fuel lines cut and clipped 2 or 3 times in the last year and a half. So with this secure area, that should help greatly to discourage, if not prevent that from happening. So next slide, please. And here's a kind of a close-up of where that new entry is there on the west side. And it's a little difficult to see, but we'll have a staff. We've designed a service window on both sides of that entry, north and south, so that we will provide more flexibility in being able to monitor and wait on our customers. So if one of those individuals is out, we can service that vestibule by either office. And then up north is where that existing entrance is, which will convert to just office space there to eliminate it. Okay, next slide.
Oh, I just had a question. So where do you park? Is the vehicles that you have right now, where do you park them? I mean, in the current, before, until you have this new.
Yeah, they are parked, they are parked outside of our admin building, what's known as the West Lot there, across from the stadium.
Okay, so it's in the same general area, but now you're moving to this.
Yes, yeah,
Okay.
it's, this building is south of our current location. Just on the other side of the cooperative extension.
Right, the WSU extension. Okay.
And so the red dash line there outlines that secure storage parking area. That's where we, the base bid includes fencing that is a little higher quality to discourage theft. And again, this provides perspective to where that new entrance is and able to utilize that main parking lot where you can see on the north end there, I think there was like one EDA stall. It just was not very good circulation at all. So we feel that this will allow us to better serve the community and just be much more functional utilizing the site. And you can have a feel for how thick that vegetation was. A lot of that's been thinned down significantly to what you see there. Next slide, please.
Doug?
Yes.
I just want to highlight part of the importance of that fencing and securing our vehicles is Doug's vehicles have had a lot of damage and vandalism to them. They've had gas lines cut, drained, like had a converter stolen, so much so that during this last season, you were parking some of your vehicles in secured areas around the Avista Stadium.
In the off season, the Spokane Indians allowed us to park our work vehicles and
Sitting overnight, I think it's important to have some security around there to limit that sort of activity.
Okay. And these are just the highlights again of what's included in that base bid. The main conference room upstairs does not currently have any public restrooms, so we'll have single occupancy restrooms outside of the nice large main conference room on the upper level. We have removed the overgrown trees. That's been done. We will have a couple modifications to be able to accommodate like a large monitor, just like this room that we're in here within that space. Just some very basic upgrades. We include repair of the existing HVAC system components that were damaged and vandalized prior to the vacancy of the building. So we will be able to address that. Working with our IT to add internet, computer, phone network system. We will be able to replace basically carpet and paint throughout the majority of the building. And we're looking to replace new ceiling tiles where just a couple of them selectively where the existing ones have water damage. So we're really trying to maximize use of the budget. Next slide, please. This helps to illustrate those single occupancy restrooms in blue. And oh yes, we're adding actual doors into the conference room. And you can see where we're looking to place a monitor requires us to eliminate a couple of windows there. We'll just fill in. And we're able to add a little bit of counter space too, again, to help serve meetings and such. It will be great. So we're excited for that. Next slide, please. We had 11 bids on this project, probably the greatest interest of any project that I can recall. So we were really thrilled. Very good low bidder with Inland Northwest Builders, as I mentioned. Being sensitive to our budget and concerned that we wouldn't be able to cover 100% of everything, we did take a strategy to identify 9 different alternates. The ones highlighted with a little highlighting there represent the what between Gil and I we identified as kind of the top priorities. But again, in looking at our budget, we are very confident and asking to award the base bid that would provide us a 10% contingency and about 44,000 left over, where we may be able to roll 1 or 2 of those priority alternates, like security lighting outside or potential replacement of some of that dilapidated fencing along Havana that you saw, if things go very well. If we don't need the full amount of contingency to cover base bid items, we hope to be able to work in a couple alternates depending upon how things go. But again, just provides the picture of the full project and what we're asking. Next slide, please. And from next steps timeline, we're hoping to see the contract awarded and notice to proceed released in the next 1 to 15 days. I believe this is scheduled on the 2 o'clock this afternoon. And then the contractor has 210 days to complete the work once the notice to proceed has been issued. So that would place us right around December, warm time of year. But we are excited for the project to move forward, and certainly from the stadium standpoint, we are looking forward to being able to have access to the admin building that we're currently occupying related to the stadium. Next slide, please. So that's it. Any questions?
So just on that last note, what happens to the current building that you are in now then, once you move into this new updated facility?
It's been identified to serve the Spokane Indians, and it will help provide needed office and storage space in order to meet MLB mandates. They have to have a certain amount of space, and so it will be utilized in that way by the Spokane Indians once we vacate it. So that is what I have on this. And if there are not additional questions, and if there's a minute or two, I'd love to give you an update just on our Liberty Lake Regional Park construction status.
Just a couple of comments if I could. It's a very tired building. If you have been in there in recent years, it's need of quite a bit of updates. HVAC system has obviously failed. It was a fairly well-known jungle out there, which encouraged a lot of sort of unwanted behaviors. So Doug has worked with our facilities team to clear a lot of stuff. So it's a lot more clear. You can see through there. So there are some needed improvements to the building, and I think it'll set the Parks Administration up nicely in the future. Be much more welcoming for our public to come in as well.
I thought there was discussion that the fair staff was going to move into your current space. I thought there was discussion about that, but maybe not.
Not that I'm aware.
Okay. I thought they were all going to kind of rotate. The parks were going to go to the new building. The fair was going to go to your existing building. Okay.
They built the new building out there.
if that happened, then they go in
They
there.
would go
Yeah.
there, but I don't discussion.
Okay.
Yeah, that's.
And this building's been vacant for about 4 years, 3 years. I mean, that's part of
About
what,
a year, just over a year. We've been working on the design for a little over a year, maybe a year and a half.
well, the conservation district's been out for
Yes.
a while. And then other people, did we rent it? Is that what we did?
We did,
Oh,
I
that's right.
think we had,
That's right, we
I think
did
we had
temporarily.
acquired full ownership of it October of 2021 or 22.
Maybe 22, and I
22.
think the conservation district leased
Subleased
it
it out,
out
yep.
because they left ahead of the end of their lease and they subleased it out. So it was vacant while it was still under their.
Yep.
Yes.
So I think while we've formally owned the building, it's been vacant for about a year and a half. Right?
Thank you.
Yeah, no, thank you.
And then you want to update us on Liberty Lake?
Absolutely.
Yes.
We are, as you recall, we had an unexpected delay with our construction that has greatly impacted the time frame of the construction. So where we had planned to have substantial completion done the first week of June. We now are literally looking at construction to go through the entire summer. And then it will into August, September, and then it will immediately transition into the Zephyr Road project that leads into the entry of the park. So we have been working with the contractor to understand their timeline. We've been working as a team to understand existing commitments out there, and we've come up with a great plan. And taking the construction into account, we are looking to the main day use parking area, which is part of the project, will be closed to day use parking. But we will be able to open limited to accommodate registered campers, camping folks that are there using the campground, as well as a handful of existing shelter reservations. That for the large shelter that's actually just outside of the project site. And we have a news release that we've been working with Martha Lou, who's been very helpful, that we're hoping to send out, as well as announcing our annual park services season that opens on May 3rd, Friday, where we have our restrooms open. We resume trash removal, if you will, and landscaping services and all that good stuff as well. And so we're excited to do that. And I have a great little flyer that just highlights the project out there at Liberty Lake that we'll share with our visitors. And Julia put this together. And so again, we're excited to have this project off the ground. And they are officially at work. They started yesterday. Underway.
Did you get one? That one.
So we'll continue to work to get the word out. We are also in the process of, we'll be posting signage, working with the city of Lake to try and have signs posted. We'll make every effort to catch day users before they come out to the site. We know it will certainly be an inconvenience during this summer. But again, at the end of the project, it's really going to be amazing. And I think our visitors are absolutely going to love it with all the new improvements that are slated to occur. It really is exciting whenever we can renew an existing park that is so heavily visited and enjoyed. It's very, very exciting. So that's my quick update there.
Awesome. Thank you. No, I think people are gonna be very excited, so. Looking forward to it.
We are too.
So, yeah.
Oh,
And I think we did talk about, Martha Lou and I talked about, just doing a ribbon cutting, not a groundbreaking. So once it's completed,
That would be
we'll
fabulous.
do a ribbon cutting. to,
yes, that sounds great.
Show everyone what's gonna happen and that it's ready to go. So,
Yeah.
thank you.
Yeah, thank you. We're again really excited. Bear Lake, Liberty Lake, these are just amazing projects. We're so fortunate to be able to move forward on these for you and the community. So pleased to be doing the work, and we'll try to focus on that end result as we work through this summer season.
For sure, gonna be cutting a lot of ribbons.
We're gonna be, yeah, next summer.
A lot of ribbons
Get your
this fall.
cinders ready.
That's right. That's right.
And Julia, so how long have you been with the county now?
This is my third week.
Well, welcome. Congratulations. Happy you're here and
Glad to be here.
you're working with a great team, so very excited. Okay.
Very good.
Thank you.
Thank you all. Thanks.
Deb, I may have you move down a chair, otherwise I can't see you. It's like you get hit by the guys here. So, very good. Okay, Kyle, take it away.
Good morning. This is just a real brief, high-level update. We wanted to make sure the board was aware of some current conversations ongoing right now with the Spokane County Regional Solid Waste System. So Deb's gonna give me a quick overview, and then we'll just kind of touch on some high points to make sure everybody's up to speed.
And this may not be news to you all, but we'll just kind of give a brief background is the Spokane County Regional Solid Waste System consists of any member jurisdiction that is entered into an interlocal agreement with the county. And the county provides comprehensive planning, management. Get all the regulatory work done. We meet all the things the state wants us to do. And in exchange, the cities that have joined in or jurisdictions that are in agreement bring their garbage to a system designated. So we provide benefits for them such as education. We do litter pickup and various types of things. We have in our county since 2014. We had, everyone was in the member jurisdictions in the regional system with the exception of Spokane Valley and Liberty Lake. Cheney was not, but they entered into it during our last comp plan upgrade or update. So the non-members in our county are strictly Spokane Valley and Liberty Lake at this time.
So Spokane Valley is coming up on the end of their term of agreement with their current disposal provider. End of this year, 2024, I think December 31st, 2024. However, they will need to make a decision on what they're doing by July 1, roughly. It's a 180-day notice period. And in that period, they could choose to go another route. They could choose to renegotiate. They could extend, they could hire a new contract. They have lots of options up to them, but the timeline is actually this summer for the city of Spokane Valley to make a determination. The valley has reached out to the county to at least open up conversations to say, what would it look like if we rejoined the system? And if we brought the county our waste, as they are shopping for options right now of what they think will be the best for their constituents. So we've had a couple of very informal conversations with some staff at the city of Spokane Valley. I believe they just recently briefed their council just last week that this is coming up. We have some decisions to make. How do we want to move forward? Kind of from a historical perspective, we used to take care of the valley's waste back in the day at the Sullivan Transfer Station. We do think we currently have capacity there, depending on the future growth of the county and the valley and the UGA. At some point, we might need some expansion if they were to come into the county's system. But there are, in essence, they're shopping around. We're having conversations with them, as far as what they might be looking for in a local agreement with us. If we are expecting at some point, they're going to ask for some terms from us, in which case then we will come to the board and explain how we think those impact us as a system, looking at it as all of our customers as one, and if those asks can marry up with that. And then we can have a conversation about what the board might be interested in as far as terms in an interlocal agreement. One thing I would just kind of give everybody a heads up on is that I'm sure there will be rate discussions as a part of that. So it would require us to likely make some rate decisions in advance of our typical rate setting process that usually happens late summer. But it's, you know, one of those things that would likely be, you know, a reasonably long, I don't think we'd be looking at a 10-year agreement. But, you know, I think hopefully we'll be in maybe if, again, this is if they come to us, you know, maybe like a 5-year or something along those lines, so that we have some certainty for a few years, that we have the flow and we can plan and respond around it, because there will be containers we'd have to buy and.
What's their current contract? Cause that all happened like in 2014. Okay, thank you. And they went with Sunshine, correct? Is that who Liberty Lake uses as well? So they both Sunshine at that point
For
in time.
their disposal, yes.
Yeah. Okay.
This is not collections, this is just the disposal side.
So, but like at the Valley dump site, isn't that Sunshine that operates that as well? So I guess I'm just kind of curious, would we be then operating if we took it over, would we be operating the dump site as well? Or is we're gonna allow them to still do that, or is that all part of the discussions?
So in the hypothetical that they decided to use us for their disposal services, it would just literally mean that.
Right, and I
their-
know all this is
yes.
hypothetical, this is.
Their
and-
curbside collection trucks would come to the Valley transfer station.
Okay.
The Bowdish, is that where Sunshine's is?
It's off Montgomery.
Yeah, off Montgomery.
Montgomery.
Yeah, the Montgomery transfer station. The university, I always get university. The university transfer station is owned by Sunshine Disposal, so that's still their transfer
Okay.
station. They would still operate their transfer station in whatever capacity it looks like. They just wouldn't have the commercial haulers coming that way.
Okay. So everything, if they chose to go with the county, everything would have to go out to Sullivan.
You mentioned that, you know, you think we potentially have the capacity right now at our Sullivan site, but if the valley continued to grow, we could potentially have to expand the Sullivan site, is that what you said?
Yeah, and I think Deb would have to talk to this a little bit more. And really where we run, it's just if we have queuing issues, in which case usually that's more on the self-haul side than the commercial.
Okay.
But how do you?
And my concern is, I mean, it seems everything at these transfer stations is very expensive. I mean, the compactors, the bear claws, all that equipment is very, very expensive. I mean, would this work financially to have them come on, or is the expansion of that facility gonna far outweigh the revenue we would get by bringing on another jurisdiction?
In early in early model runs of it, I'd say the revenue would, support a future expansion of that transfer station.
Okay.
When we say expansion, the valley is set up really nicely. The only issue we could run into there is queuing. So that might be, even just like expanding the entrance road, not even actually expanding the facility, just so that there's more place for cars to come in and get off that local access road. So we can't have people backing up all the way to the Sullivan. The financial model would support some of those activities, and the rate structure would have to support that as well. It would just be looking at the economies that would be achieved for the additional volume, and how that would benefit all of our constituents, unincorporated and valley alike. Everybody, would, at least in our minds, would be treated the same. And those economies of scale could have some beneficial impacts to all of the ratepayers.
When we open our gates every morning, it's, a fixed cost. So whether we receive a bag of garbage or we receive 100 trucks of garbage, we have sort of this set cost. And so the more garbage we receive, more economies of scale. Be better.
Yeah, but there'd also be, for citizens that, just the convenience of. Yes, if you change the queue up, because otherwise there can be long lines at that. Transfer station.
And when we get into, so there is a flow control, when we actually get into exercising or the practice of flow control, that pertains to the large haulers. We're not out policing individuals who self-haul to Stillwood, go to Sunshine, or go to Waste to Energy, or go to Sullivan. So, we're not really in the business of telling individuals in their pickup trucks where to go. Flow control is more about the commercial side and curbside pickup.
Okay.
So I just mean from a queuing standpoint, your individual experience, if you choose to go to the transfer station, we're not gonna eliminate choice from folks.
Apologize, we're not eliminating that choice for them. Okay, I just know. Since I happen to use some of these services, since we don't have service up to our house, that there can be long lines at some of these places. So, which would get longer lines if we're having then a whole nother route come there. So that would be my concern for constituents, not for the big haulers, for the individual citizens who don't want to go out to the waste energy plant, that choose to come to their Sullivan plant or choose to go to Sunshine's facility. So, that would just be my concern if that facility were happen to close and they're having their people go to Sullivan for individual garbage runs, then that would be a lot more that would happen at that facility.
Yeah, we're very aware and we're always thinking about kind of the self-haul customer, even though that's really not the economic backbone of a transportation. It is really important, and if we don't have good or high level service for those customers, it's on our county roads. I mean, it's a direct correlation.
Exactly.
So that's obviously a huge priority for us.
So, and it's a service to our citizens, so, yeah.
I think it's fair to say that citizens will still choose to go to the location that's close proximity for them, and they'll still have that option. Right, and I would suspect the Sunshine transfer station will continue to remain operational, and be an option for people as well.
So what we're really talking about is the commercial contract.
Yeah. All
Nothing
your-
changes for residents still choose if they want, where they want to bring.
It's really your curbside collection, people who
Right.
are, the trucks that are coming along, they're picking things up
Right.
would go, they
So
go to
the valley-
Sunshine today.
We'll decide that they have to make a decision at some point here. What's their time frame?
So they have to let their current contract holder Sunshine know 180 days before contract
Okay.
expiration, so basically July 1.
Okay.
But the real money is in the commercial side, so if Sunshine isn't having that commercial side, they could shut down their facility. And not do it if they're not getting, and again, this is like all hypothetical, I know.
Oh.
But I guess that's what, I don't know that they would actually keep it open for individuals.
It was open previous to
They,
the change.
yeah, and they get garbage from other counties as well. And so, they still have a viable business, but I don't.
Okay.
They have G certificates that cover even unincorporated areas that wouldn't be impacted by this. The G certificates are just their right to provide the service.
So it's just in the incorporated area of the city of the Valley or Liberty Lake that would.
So, now that the Valley City Council is kind of up to speed on the conversation, we're expecting staff to be reaching out further. We're definitely being shopped. They're very upfront about that. They're talking to Sunshine, seeing what Sunshine can do, seeing what we can do. So I would expect they're going to either ask for some specific terms from us, and then we can have a conversation about, they've been pretty clear they want some level of rate certainty. So we would be coming back to you with the models based on their tonnage, put into our model understanding the terms that they would like to see, whether or not we would accept any of those terms or all of those terms, and bringing it before the board with a recommendation and obviously a discussion of what the board's comfortable with.
And the remaining of the time frame of when we're going to be switching over.
November 16th.
Okay, so we won't actually know, I mean, that's why this is ahead of us knowing what true costs are gonna be.
Right.
Because we won't know until January after a couple of months.
It's that.
So, I mean, I guess I just wanna make sure that we're being as realistic, because we've certainly gotten into contracts before where we haven't had all the information and we're not fully charging what the cost is. I mean, I can list several contracts, so I don't wanna get into, setting ourselves up for a 10-year contract where we don't, we're estimating. So I don't know what that looks like. We may have to talk to legal on contracts, because I'd wanna make sure that we'd have the ability. I know they want the rate certainty, but we can't give that to them at this point in time. We can give them an estimate. Hopefully not to exceed in the future based on what actual costs come in at, but I mean, I don't wanna.
Yeah.
Set ourselves up for a 10-year contract where we're covering, 10% of their costs. Yeah,
The really great thing about what Deb and team have done is they've developed a very sophisticated model for our costs of our disposal. That's what led the board to make a decision on taking it in-house. And I think it's fair to say that there were some estimates in there that were a little bit on the higher side, just because of what we didn't know. So having that model built, having the availability to look at what the potential waste stream from the valley would be and how that would impact stuff and what that would impact out on our capital plan. And again, Deb and Kyle have a very robust long-term capital plan as well to look at. So there'll be some tweaks and opportunities to evaluate what folding that additional tonnage into the services would look like.
so you'll be coming back before us before we get any rate ideas or any of that back to them.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Okay. Well, and that's good to know, because I think Josh and I have council members reaching out to us, so I appreciate that. Hey, thank you. That's gonna take us to Scott Chesney. We've got like lots of things, Scott. You're gonna stay with us for a while.
We will try to be expeditious
Oh, no, it's all good.
as we do this.
Anyone else joining you?
No.
Just you today, okay.
Soloing today and solo.
Yeah,
But we'll try to handle it as best I can. So
I'm sure you'll do.
we do have the first two items before you are zoning text amendments. The first one relates to the idea of the extended housing, notably for the fires. Next slide, please. And we'll go through these kind of briefly. These are allowed outside of the comprehensive plan cycle. They are not map amendments like the plan. They apply everywhere in the zone. It's happening. The two that are before you today are for meat processing and temporary use. Next slide, please. These are the 6 criteria one of which must be met to carry these forward. You've seen this now several times. We use it for evaluating the first step of comprehensive plan amendments as well as zoning text amendments. Next slide, please. Actually, Ron, I've got these kind of in the wrong order. We use the same presentation. Can you go to slide 10, please? There you go. This is fairly simple, straightforward language. You can see the edits at the bottom. Right now, the current code allows for a 6-month temporary use with a single 6-month extension. What we're putting in this case is that the planning director is authorized to grant it on an annual basis, and that there will still be some cause for that, but that cause can be extended indefinitely. This will allow someone who is taking 3, 4, maybe 5 years or so to fully recover from the fire to continue to use temporary housing in compliance with our code. all other things being the same, they'll still be hooked up to potentially a septic or water or other things for health and safety purposes. But this eliminates the risk of a challenge to a homeowner or property owner that they've had their 6 months and they've gotten their one extension, but they're not done and they have to move on. This gives us the flexibility to let them rebuild at their own pace, simply put.
So how long, again, you said up to 5 years?
This would be indefinite, but it would have to be, it's an annual renewal and it has to be for cause. The property owner would have to demonstrate that they're still making progress on rebuilding what was there, or they hit a financial hurdle and they're gonna need another year to work through that. That cause would be looked on quite liberally, but it can't just go on forever with no hope of rebuilding the original structure.
The concern, and this, what prompted this was the Connex boxes project, and essentially the concern is if, like, as Scott said, if you get past that first total of a year, get an extension, that way you don't have neighboring properties filing, enforcement actions saying this isn't a legal structure. So that was the concern, is that we would run into that situation, that people are gonna be running up against that 1 year expiring, and then building and planning is gonna get flooded with complaints.
No, and I definitely want them to be able to stay in it. I just didn't think 5 years seems like a long time.
Well, we hope it doesn't go 5 years. I'm just, the flexibility is there at the discretion of the planning director, but I hope it doesn't go that long either.
That horizon seemed long to us, but it was specifically brought up by Mayor Cooper in discussing the idea. It's like, some of these could take 5 years. And this allows for us to recognize that legally on an annual basis.
And then, but they wouldn't be able to sell that property with that Connex box on it to somebody else. Because that's no longer a temporary structure for the person that was affected by the fire.
Yes, the interpretation would be that this is for someone trying to rebuild on their own property. If they were to sell it, it would come with new conditions. They'd be filing a new building permit and be under that horizon.
Because I think that was the intent, was that those would go to somebody else who may need it or something else, but it was not. I guess I just want to make sure that this isn't intending for a future owner to then come in and say, oh, I'm gonna buy this and live in the Connex box while I built my house, because that was the intent of what this is all for victims of the fire.
Yes, it's intended for victims of the fire. And at this stage is kind of a technical reminder, we're asking you for the initiation of this, which does say, yes, it met one of those basic 6 hurdles. We're sending it back to the planning department now for full analysis. In fact, we will look at ensuring that there's not necessarily a transferability in here, that it's for the original property owner who lost their property and is not transferable to new property. That would be something we could add in as this comes back to you later in the fall.
Yeah, but as far as the actual Connex boxes themselves, I mean, I think that is between the Country Church and the Elk Strong group on sort of what happens with the next. I mean, we don't, the county doesn't have any ownership in the actual Connex box itself. I honestly don't know what.
But we allowed the permitting of it to be there for the purpose of the fire victims, so they could rebuild and have somewhere safe to live.
Yeah, but I don't know the actual box itself. Once someone does finish constructing their homes, I don't know what stipulations there are around that specific box and where that goes, or does that go back to a kind of a home base and wait for someone else to request? I'm not sure.
So I would just want to make sure that it's not transferable to a new property owner on the property.
Right.
So that wasn't.
And whatever the structure is, again, we're not concerned whether it's a Connex box or some other facility. However, when the new structure is completed and a certificate of occupancy is issued, the temporary structure must go away. It can't remain as sort of an illegal ADU. So this,
Amber.
Oh, I was just gonna, so where does it talk about the 5 years that you're mentioning?
it doesn't.
Oh, but you're contemplating.
It's left indefinite. We made
Oh.
it deliberately indefinite based on cause.
Okay,
So it's grant annual time extensions for temporary emergency residential shelters with demonstrated cause upon written request. We left the door open.
Okay.
And if the commissioners ultimately feel that they want to put a limit on this, we could do that. We could put a 5-year horizon of sunset. But at the moment we left it open, but put in the for cause, there must be a recognized reason why we would grant that extension.
And this is now gonna go to the planning commission to further.
It was at the planning commission for a public hearing for initiation. It was recommended in that unanimously. You will receive their recommendation next week and consider it the week after.
Okay.
And again, this is for the initiation stage, not the approval stage.
Thank you.
Now we can run back if you would, Ron, number 4, slide 4. So the second one, initiated by a constituent through Commissioner Kearns, was to consider meat processing on a small scale in our rural areas. As we've talked about before, staff found 2 viable paths to doing this. One is regulated by the State Department of Ag and the other by the USDA. In talking with constituents and potential users, the USD model is preferred because that allows for retail sales at the site. The state model does not. It does make it a little more cumbersome, but the desirability of being able to sell that product legally was more than desired before that. So we have created a new term, small scale USDA slaughterhouse. And it will be on next slide, please. It will be listed in our ag, our resource areas, large tract, small tract ag, rural, traditional, and potentially rural activity centers, all as conditional uses. And the next slide, please. And those conditional uses are kind of laid out for 2 different versions here. One of the resource lands and one for the rural lands. They're remarkably similar, but they talk about parameters that we've looked at from best practices in terms of nuisance issues, distance from that. Next slide, please. One of the issues that came up was the scale of these, and at first it was how do we regulate this on a small scale so we don't get Hormel or Cargill dropping in uninvited on 1,000 acres. Which of course seems unlikely, but rather than put a size on it, the users suggested simply saying you can't have a feedlot or overnight storage of animals. You must have a scale where you are bringing them in for processing and they are processed immediately and then either sent back to you or put in the coolers for whatever period of time is necessary. Everyone felt this had a limiting effect without restricting it by square footage or a number of head processed or something like that. So that came out of the conversations and research and the public hearing with the planning commission. And again, so these will be conditional uses. They will go before a hearing examiner. The applicant will have to address at least these, and as always, we have a catch-all. Any other restrictions imposed by the hearing examiner are allowed at their discretion based on testimony they hear and potentially on conditions. Again, this was through the planning commission public hearing process, recommending unanimous approval and quite a lot of public support. We had as many as 25 people in the audience expressing support for this and a desire for the use. So it seems both timely and relevant. And so you'll be receiving the committee's recommendation next week, acting on it the week after to initiate and study further. This one is, we put a lot of research into this up front to try to get ahead of any fatal flaws. So this one's pretty well developed. Again, since these are off cycle from the amendments, this one may come back to you, or both of them of these, since they're relatively non-controversial, could come back to you pretty quickly after initiation. And with that, let's move on to the last one, which is related to the planning grants. We don't have any slides for this because it's related to boring contracts and contract language and things like that. But there's 2 things happening with Commerce. The first both of these are legislatively funded and appropriated. The first is for our overall update, the general planning comprehensive update. The county will receive $700,000 effective July 1st. And that money is for the next 2 years to finish it by July 1st of 26. Those funds are reimbursable. We will be just now working on the sort of application for that. And while there is an application, these are not competitive funds. They are guaranteed funds to come back to us. The contract, however, Commerce does not expect to sign until be ready and sign until fall. September, October is the horizon we've heard. Yet we will be able to start encumbering or billing against these funds as of July 1st. One of the reasons we're here today, a little bit out of the normal grant cycle, is we need to get searching for professional consultants to help with this and the other part, the climate group. Typically, we don't make these commitments until we have the funds secured. In this case, we're asking to kind of go a little bit ahead of the curve and be able to go out and at least solicit those contractors with award dates of probably July 1st for the general planning consultant. The second grant, it's specifically for climate and resilience element, which is a new element in GMA from the legislature last year in the climate bill 1181. It's a totally new effort. It's looking at greenhouse gas reductions. It's looking at overall resiliency, reduction of vehicle miles traveled. This one is funded separately by the legislature. The county will be awarded $800,000 for this work element itself. We've partnered with a number of the small towns and cities in the county, recognizing for stuff that climate is a pretty big issue. It doesn't stop at a boundary. And secondly, that most of those are unable professionally to do the work without either their own expensive consultants or something else. So we offered to partner with them. A number of them took that up. So we have a total budget of $2 million to use on this over the next 2.5 years. These funds are separate from the grant funds in that they're available immediately. In fact, the contract we have or the interlocal we sent to the other groups came back this morning. So everyone has signed on to that. We forwarded that to Randy and the grants folks to move this one along. And so we'll be, again, looking for very specific consultants in this area and also partnering with other communities. So we're excited to move both of these forward. Really actually excited to partner with the communities. I think that's going to open up a really important way of discussing quality of life in small towns, quality of life in our rural areas for the overall comprehensive plan, using these climate funds as the vehicle to do so. So, excuse me. We're hoping for a nod of the head to move forward on seeking general planning consultant grants or consultants, getting that RFQ out on the street. And this one is almost tied up and a contract will be coming back to you for approval in the next week or so.
When I was over at the governor's homeless council on homelessness meeting, there was someone from Commerce that was giving an update on those $50,000 grants that they were offering. I think I emailed you about this,
housing, right.
and it was related to helping communities with the housing
Yes.
element of, so this was the growth management section of Commerce that was talking about these. They're very small grants, so they're really probably something you would contract out unless you wanted to work it into one of the planners. I know you probably have one of your planners assigned to work on the affordable housing elements in the housing chapter. But anyway, I just wanted to let you know that I think they only gave out about 5 of the awards, and they're still looking to give out some more of those dollars. So if we could use it for just some more deeper dive into some of our affordable housing data, taking what Commerce gives us, and maybe if we wanted to do that, they still, even though the deadline is passed, they still are looking to give them out to more counties. So
We will, we'll take another look. We looked at it pretty carefully in the first go round. And while they were earmarked for smaller areas, we also ran up against the notion that we can't build two different funding sources for similar work. We'd have to create a separate scope of work from the climate and resiliency and the planning grants themselves. And we didn't really see a viable way of doing that with adding a lot of overhead. And so you hate to leave grant money on the table, but this overlapped in a significant way with the other ones.
You
So we
couldn't put it
kind of
with
put it
one of
aside.
these other contracts.
So we'll go back and take a look at that.
Maybe they would be flexible, because they really seemed like they wanted to give this money to communities, and they were kind of disappointed they didn't get as many, but I think that's because of the way they structured it.
Yeah, so if we were to go back and say, if you might consider interpreting your criteria in this way, we could add that to our scope of work.
It's kind of I think they just structured it very strangely, and they're wondering, why didn't more
Right.
counties apply? Well, it's a strange amount of money, and if you can't,
And what can you do with $50,000?
right, if you can't actually add it to one of these other contracts, you know, like as a larger, to be able to do more, it just seems, yeah, it's just disappointing that we couldn't tap into it, but I would, do you
Take another
you
look.
have the contact still for
Yeah.
the individual that was, I think there's a particular person in the growth management section that is managing those.
Coincidentally or not, I guess coincidentally, but lateral thought here. Our team has built really strong relationships with Commerce in these early months of the work. Our Commerce planner, our designated planner, sits with us every Thursday at the planner studio. And so we've got them on hand every week to ask questions and go, what about this? What about that? And so that's helping us more fully understand what's going on. And then they are bringing their housing specialist in one week, they'll bring the climate specialist in the next week. So we're building our models and our scope of work very much hand in hand with Commerce to bring.
I just got a note from George, those funds have already been applied for Spokane County, they're going to Slick. He also looked at it along with Scott, also felt like it wasn't something that was manageable based on the size
So
of it.
Slick did receive them.
Seems like that's what.
Oh, okay, yeah, that wasn't on the slide that I saw, but maybe they were just showing the counties that applied just as counties. But so there were other like nonprofits that were also eligible to apply.
Appears to be the case.
Okay, well, that's good, because they can run the numbers of different levels of affordability and provide that to the conversation. Maybe that's a better strategy.
Well, at least we'll be coordinating with all of those groups just in the course of this work. So yeah, we'll be able to maybe coordinate
Okay.
work.
Good, well, glad to see the funds come to Spokane, not stay in Olympia.
I think Scott's doing the right thing, being proactive in getting some RFQs on the street, so it can help prepare for someone to come and help us. There's a little bit of a chicken before the egg or egg before the chicken, depending on what you want to say. The planning grant that Scott referenced of, I think it was 700,000, right? So those funds can't be started to use until July 1 in order to be reimbursed. We're not gonna have a contract in place from Commerce until September, October. So going and getting a consultant agreement and a contract with them pre the Commerce agreement, which you would want to incorporate the contract with a consultant, all the terms under Commerce, that might create some complexities for us here. So we might have to get creative on how we, because I would anticipate that if we go out for an RFQ, we'll want to be in a position to award something within the next couple of months. So then how do we get the Commerce contract terms incorporated with that contract with a consultant? So that's gonna be something we have to still kind of sort through. I think the climate resiliency one, we already have the draft contract, so we will be able to build that in.
And those funds are available immediately.
Yeah, we can spend those as soon as we execute the agreement, correct?
Yes.
Scott, what's I'm seeing the 1.2 million versus the 2 million.
Yes.
The 1.2 is what's referenced in the grant for the climate resiliency right now, which includes Spokane County and the jurisdictions that we're going to provide the services for. Help us to understand the delta.
Legislative biennium issue. The bigger amounts were authorized for planning but only the 1.2 was appropriated in the last legislative session. Commerce is anticipating the rest to be appropriated in the next session.
Another 800. Next session.
Okay.
And then the planning grant is 350 for this coming biennium and 350 for the next one.
That has changed a couple of times, but that looks to be the new parameter.
Okay.
At one point it was, here's your grant, and then it was more and more, thing parameters got attached to it too.
So I think we're in a good position on the climate resiliency one to go out for an RFQ, incorporate the grant agreement terms within that ultimate contract with the consultant. It's the general planning one that we still have a little bit of work to do on. How do we figure out? Because I don't anticipate we want to. I know Scott's chomping the bit to start doing the work July 1. But then being able to finesse the grant agreement terms into the agreement with the consultant is the outstanding question.
We do have one thing that helps that, and it's in your packet, and I'll make sure it's highlighted. We have a letter from Commerce, from Dave Anderson, outlining it's here. We're ready to go on these terms. You can start encumbering funds as of this date. The Commerce contract may take longer, but he's giving us a written green light to move a little forward faster. So hopefully that can help our own internal process, provide some assurance that we're not going too far out on a limb.
I guess I saw that as well. I'm just referencing typically what we'd want to do is we're going to want the consultant to be obligated to perform according to the grant contract that Commerce gives us. Absent the grant contract, it makes it hard for us to reference something in the consultant agreement, which we have to make sure that they're being held to the same standards we're being held to. Correct. That's the finessing one we'll have to figure out. But I think the proactive approach to getting the RFQs out is a good strategy by Scott.
That's all I have, commissioners.
Very good.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Miscellaneous?
Chris
Okay, Chris,
and Heather, I believe.
okay. So yes, so now we're at miscellaneous items. So you guys have something you want to talk about?
EOA Homeward Bound. So I briefed you guys last week on the Homeward Bound contract. It's on the docket for approval at 2 p.m. today, but we discussed bringing in George's team to find out if there were any other funds available. So Chris has come on board with some different funding so that it doesn't have to come from general funds. Awesome.
Yeah, so as discussed, and you guys brought this up, this will be coming out of HHAA, so document recording. Found some room there, which is great. And so this will kind of go under my portfolio. The only notable change that we made to the contract as it stood when you guys looked at it before was the period of performance. So as George discussed before, it'd be really nice if we sync this up with our normal RFP timeline. And if this is a priority for the commissioners to keep funded, then we can roll that into more normal projects. I shouldn't say normal, but scheduled projects for RFP. So the end date will be through 6/30 of 25, and at that point we'll have another RFP come out to do a big batch. So it should work out really well. And that'll be about, we're already past the start date of that, so it should be about 13 months.
And they haven't had any expenses to date, so.
Same dollar amount, 30,000.
$10 amount, yes.
And then with the opportunity that if we need to extend or expand upon that dollar amount, would we be able to do that?
Within this project period or next?
Within this one?
That is something that we can certainly look into and amend. That would be brought before you guys to do a.
Because I think last time we did initial 20,000 and then added
It's been
to.
another.
We added 20 in the second year.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So,
that's something I can work with the grantee and make sure, their spend out's appropriate. If it isn't, and something, there's a need noted there, I can bring that in front of you guys and see if there's any flexibility there.
okay, great. Thank you. That's awesome news.
Awesome.
So. And again, we're the only entity that is providing this kind of service to our community. So. Thank you. And just make sure we add that into our press release.
Thank you.
So, thank you. Any other miscellaneous?
Don't think so. Me.
I just had a quick question on the opioid settlement money. Where are we at on the timeline for? I didn't see it on today's, is it on today's 2 p.m.? We talked about a resolution approving the 3 top priorities of how we wanted to spend the dollars, and I just wanted to flag that it's important, I think, to have a media plan around that as well.
Really good call. I thought it was on last.
Oh, I was,
I think it was approved last week. I don't know if Justin's on. Gina, do you recall
I
this?
saw it, but I.
Let me double check really quick. To admit, I probably wasn't as
I know,
focused on.
We're zooming in.
Out of town. Let me check really quick. But yes, on, I think our plan is to highlight those priorities from the commissioners through a media
I mean, it's
release
not,
once.
if we did approve it last week, I just think it's still worth
Yes,
talking about the community, because there's just been a lot of community interest in how those dollars are spent and what we're doing to address the opioid crisis. And so I just wanted to highlight that, you know, we've spent a year talking about that, and I think we've done a really good job of targeting the dollars to areas that aren't already, you know, eligible for other funds. So I know the city had a press release about what they were gonna do some initial spend on, so I think it'd be good for the county to do that as well.
I don't think, I'm not saying it.
See, I didn't see it, like,
Okay,
that's why I
no,
thought.
I just wanted to add some context to that. So Martha Lou has attended the community services meeting and the OAC meetings as well. And has been tracking that. And so the plan that we've made in the communications office is when it does come forward to have a release prepared and then to do proactive outreach, at least to the papers and TV, to try and get some placements and make Justin available for interviews. So I know that's in the works, and so when the resolution is coming forward, we'll get something prepared. I also want to mention I circulated copies to the board a little bit ago. I'll pass these out for the Homeward Bound program press release.
Oh, and
I think in our research on this, we did find there's one other entity that provides family reunification services. And so I think what we're doing though is on a much larger scale than that other entity. They kind of raise funds on an individual basis. We also connected with Veteran Services and asked if they're a partner. They're aware of the program, but Veteran Services actually uses their own funding to do this for veterans if there are requests. And so just another FYI.
Who's the other entity doing it?
So Julie Garcia and Jules Helping Hands has a named program. I forget the name, but that also does this kind of thing on a grassroots level.
But that's not funded through.
The only governmental, or the only local
when
government.
I talked to Julie Garcia and took a tour of one of the shelters like 2 months ago, she was asking us, when is this money coming? Cause they got it through DOA.
Well,
I
and
but maybe
had-
they've done some private fundraising
well,
too.
and I know, I had received an email a couple
Right,
months back
right.
from Jason Green asking to be reimbursed for some individuals that their organization had
Yeah.
purchased tickets
But
for,
it's,
so.
they could be doing some private fundraising as
Right.
well.
Okay,
But we're
yeah,
the
'cause they were asking when we were going to.
Government
re-up our-
entity providing these this funding.
We can add that in government entity. I just wanted to note that they do private fundraising. Kind of crowdsource funding to get people reunited with family and friends, and stable support, so. Okay, so if you have any changes to that release, feel free, besides the one that I just noted ahead of the meeting, and my plan will be to send it immediately following board action this afternoon.
Just a quick add, Helping Hands has collaborated with VOA or some of the people that are working with to receive these services. But our understanding is the funding came through the way.
Yeah, that's what I
Can't do
thought.
funding
That's
stuff.
kind of a.
Because Helping
Okay.
Hands was on the list of groups that collaborated with spending these funds.
thing.
Pops in.
There's also, Chair, just gonna mention, we have a number of proclamations up today, so
We do.
it's very busy in the proclamation department. Martha Lou will be on hand. We'll have a couple of groups there, and I know there's been some other requests. I just wanted to revisit our process briefly. So, you know, the sponsor of a resolution should bring it before the board in a full meeting and get head nods or approval. We'll work with your team to draft it and then bring it back for the board the following week. Is generally the timeline. I think there's a couple that we needed to really just meet that short window because they came up. But generally, we prefer to do the 2-touch 1 week time, and then really to work with your staff to give your assistants and execs a chance to get that writing experience and to work with the community group to really realize the full value of the outreach to bring in the community for the actual proclamation. So we're helping coordinate that, but I just emphasize again, really appreciate the collaboration with your team.
So I'll say in some cases, they send it to the chair, so the chair tends to get more of them, and it's not because I'm collaborating with the community on it, so I would just state that as a fact. But I think we want to make sure, I think again, you know, just talking about the intentionality of the proclamations, that we're being intentional with them. One that we've done before that we missed, I just noticed that we missed, was the Laborers Memorial. Usually we do that. It's usually just happen to remember because it was my daughter's wedding anniversary, and I remember going to do the proclamation and go back to the wedding. So we've done that. Very committed. We've done that several times, and that one we didn't do. You know,
That's right. It's always like the last weekend of
of
April.
April.
Yeah.
Yeah, so anyway, so that's, you know, for construction and all of that, it's an important one. So.
I'm
So anyway,
sorry.
so it's trying to figure out how we really,
It's called the Workers Memorial,
the laborers.
the laborers,
Memorial,
laborers memorial. They do a ceremony,
the last Saturday of.
yeah,
April.
at the memorial is at Mission Park in the Gonzaga area.
Yeah, we've done it, I've actually gotten credit,
That we adopted?
but it's.
So we
I think
would
it's
do
been a
it, we
few
would do it
years.
the Monday before, and then somebody would go and read it. That's what, okay.
Yeah, oh, yeah, no, I know what, I don't remember us adopting one here, but maybe, like, we do so many of them.
We've done it we did it like 3 times in a row, because I went and
Okay.
read it, because then I actually went and read the proclamation at the ceremony.
Mhm. It looks like it was last done in 2014, so it seems you've missed it. for a
No,
couple of years.
Maybe since the pandemic, we.
Okay.
2019 was for sure, because I can show you a photo of me doing
Great.
it.
Yeah.
That's when your daughter got married?
Yeah.
Just trying to get some consensus because I think we're getting,
We're getting a lot.
Thanks a ton.
And you know, I think we just have to choose that, just because we get a request for a proclamation, doesn't mean we do a proclamation. And so again, having 3 commissioners put their head nods to it is important to do, so.
Can we also do, so we have 3. Any that anybody wants to read, or do you want me to read all 3?
That's why I'm here at the table, Commissioner. I need some clarification. There was a lot of laughter around this, but my understanding was that Commissioner French was doing Older Americans Month.
But typically, it's that one is who's ever the
Chris Jordan is.
Yeah, the
on.
commissioner
It's
that's on.
Commissioner Jordan.
Right.
Yeah, I'm
So-
happy to do that if need be, no problem.
You'll read it over Zoom.
Yeah, so you might have a grumpy baby in the background, but that's fine. It'll work out.
Hey, that's better than a barking dog, so there you go. I love
Yes.
grumpy babies. We all understand those.
Grumpy
So-
babies bring smiles to our faces when it's on Zoom,
When it's somebody else's.
when it's someone else's baby.
Also, Commissioner CUNY, I have you down for National Nurses Week.
But as the chair, I traditionally do not read them, so.
And I have not received a reply from Kathleen Thompson, who requested it.
So, and I didn't know we were putting it on today, just because,
It's not till next week.
yeah, so if we were trying to do it ahead or not, so we can read it and provide the proclamation, I guess, and
Oh, but you don't have confirmation that
I
they're
don't
coming.
have confirmation
Oh,
from
okay.
Kathleen.
do we
So
want to defer until next week?
what if she shows up?
Then we'll just do it. If I have to read a second one, that's fine.
Let's leave it on the agenda and we can always just, I'm happy to read it too. My dad is a retired nurse, but.
Okay.
I could do
All right.
So let's-
All right,
We'll have
Commissioner
Amber read
Walker.
it.
Sounds good.
And then for Expo 74 today, Kelly Brown, the project coordinator, will be here rather. And Commissioner Kearns will do the honors.
And just make sure I have who I should be expecting to receive those. Because it just helps me to call them down.
Right.
So,
I was just gonna add, I think that's a good segue into the next point, which is with the commissioner that brings it to the board, if we're receiving them as the sponsor, I think it just makes sense to have continuity. They would be the one to read it. And then, if the chair does receive them, I'd just make a suggestion to send it to the commissioner or to send it all to all the commissioners. So you're not put in the position of saying yay or nay, but they should be approaching, and an individual commissioner can pick it up and bring it to the meeting. I think what gets a little confusing for us on the communications team as we're coordinating it is who's in the lead, what team should we be working with, who's responsible for writing it, and just keeping all the things on track. The other thing I was looking for some consensus around is I've heard kind of conflicting things from the board on this, so I'm just make a point of this. At various times it's been presented that, well, we've been to an event and the city had a proclamation they were reading and felt like the county should have one. But on the other side of that coin, there are a number of events that are city events and are not county events, and the city is in the lead. So I just raise that for your contemplation and consideration, that not just having one because the city has one, and not necessarily just doing it because we've done it before, but we do have an exhaustive list and calendar from a scan that's been done of the ones we've done in the past. We want to leave a little bit of space for new groups, new people coming to the county for community engagement purposes. But if there's ones that you feel strongly about and you plan on bringing to the board, we can even have the calendar printed and circulated to the whole board if everyone hasn't seen that. And if individual commissioners want to highlight them or call them out, say, I want to take this one. Really looking for the ownership and sponsorship of the proclamations. I think that would help. And understanding it's the communications office helping to coordinate it, but we're not sponsoring it. We're taking our direction from you on what you think the priorities should be. So I think we would be in a position to have to say yes to everything, not because we don't want to make those judgments necessarily. The other thing I think is when you do sponsor one, before you sponsor it or say yes, obviously it has to come to the full board for discussion and consideration. There might be something you haven't seen, but also asking your staff to maybe vet them a little bit, research the group. Is this a new group? Is this a group we've done before? Come to us and work with us. Because we really want to be in the space of helping polish it, make it shine, and then get the community there. But the question of should we do it, should we not do it? It just puts us in a spot of having to say yes or no to community groups, and
right.
that's really not.
And we don't want you to make that choice, and I guess Gina, you probably get a lot of them as well, because a lot of them are times. So I would say then, if it comes to me as the chair or it comes to Gina, that I'm happy to just circulate it, forward it to everybody to say thoughts. And again, knowing we want to be purposeful and intentional in proclamations and not just be doing every proclamation to do a proclamation. So. Stop.
I just tracked down the status of the OAC resolution. It was waiting for my initial, just already drafted it up, so it will be on next week.
And what are the, because I was thinking there was 4 priorities, not 3, so.
Well, I know we talked about the data analyst and the work to do better around the sheriff's use of, I don't know if that was
The drug analyst.
was that the 4th one?
Yeah, that was,
Okay.
yeah, the SRSC expansion, the treatment services for the more immediate launch of it. The neonatal care one is, and then the sheriff's office, the data tracking. Those are the four. This was our expansion of the SRSC for the 23-hour stabilization. This was the community one to get it launched more immediately because we know we'd be, you know, sometime in
So
construction.
there's two or.
Yeah, two similar ones.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
You could probably put them in. Yeah, it's gonna need some, you know, communications lens on it, cause it's probably, we need to explain some of those services that are maybe more technical or medical, you know.
Make it a little more layman's. I think that's
Yes.
where Pat
Yes.
team will work with
Yes.
Justin's team to make sure it reads really well for the community. All right, so next week.
Okay. So. I don't think we have to do a formal action on the press release. Can we just do head nods? Okay. Head nods for the press release for today.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's good.
Just for awareness, I added a line at the very end, Spokane County is the only governmental agency in the region that provides this support.
Okay, anything else? No executive sessions?
No one's suing us. That's pretty good. That we know of.
Really bad.
No, nobody knew.
Okay, then, yeah, look at that, it's 10:23 and we'll be able to
Good.
adjourn for the morning, go to the luncheon and, is everybody back at 2:00?